Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. But welcome to Peter Oxley Modelling Lab Confidential. This is the special after hours videos, behind the scenes videos that normally you never shoot. I just quietly get on with it, show you my progress. But as we are going to memberships, we're going to be having these deep dive little secret videos showing me actually working. They won't be long because I haven't got the time to do all the editing and faff around, but gives you a bit of a flavour, little updates and little bits of tricks and tips and how I get my Ron Dennis style model building done. So today, first of all, a very tiny update because when I did the recent update on the Mosquito cockpit, one or two comments were made, no negative comments at all, but one or two observations, shall we say, where people said it looks very clean. I haven't done any weathering. Well, I had done weathering, but under these lights it always looks, everything looks lighter and less. Things look less extreme and less dark than they actually are. However, I have had a little bit more. So what I've done is I did a little bit of dry brushing, very, very, very subtle, and a bit of extra weathering wash. So I'm going to show you in detail. You might just be able to, if you compare it to the photographs of the previous video, you probably will just make it out. So things like a little bit of dry brushing here and there. You can just see a little bit on the top of the instrument panel. It's just nicely highlighted those switches. We've got a little bit on the floor around where Alan Broadley's feet, the navigator, sits. John Alan Broadley, to be absolutely correct with his name. Again, a little bit of dry brushing around here. If you look very carefully, you'll pick it out. It's very, very subtle. I've not gone mad. We haven't gone mad. We don't want to do that. A little bit more wash here and there. I say under I've got extremely bright lights, brighter than most people have, in fairness. So it does make it look lighter and brighter. To the naked eye, is not as fooled as much as the camera is, you might say. But there's just these little bits of subtle dry brushing and little bits of detail that have been added here and there. I think it's just about right now. I don't want to go any further with it because I don't want to make it look absolutely hammered. I still want it to look like a fairly nice, reasonable condition aeroplane. Not one that's been through the entire war. And that's where we're up to with that. Now, zooming you back and talking to you straightly. What I'm now doing is, I've got a photo here I'm going to show you. A little bit of scratch building going on now. On the gun ammunition boxes that go into the gun feed sheets. Well, first of all, let's do one thing at a time. I'll show you this picture first and talk about this just to get it out of the way. Here we go. So, if you look at this, this is a photo from a book. It's a very accurate photograph and diagram. It's the ammunition feed boxes. There's the feed chutes here, you can see at the bottom down here. Goes to the guns. But these have got they're like a leather handle, like a leather strap. And what they do is you pull out the pins to release them, and then you pull the strap and release. There's a pin at the front, and there's a do you have to release these pins as well? There's a few pins you have to release, and then you just pull it up and they come out. And that's not featured in the kit, of course, which is the way it often goes. A bit too much detail, perhaps. But I think that it's quite visible, and I thought that actually that would be nice to add those as a bit of an add-on. So it's plastic card time, isn't it? To be honest. Now I want to show you that. I also want to show you. I'll come back to the plastic card in a second. I also wanted to show you. Let me just organise my messy sunglasses doing on there. That's ridiculous. They don't belong there. I've just moved them off the car. Took the car out for just a little warm up to run its oil and the engine and things. So what we've got that I wanted to show you was this. You'll remember that I've talked about Aftermarket in my previous couple of videos that were updating on the Mosquito. And I've got a very healthy scepticism for some of it. What I'm going to show you today is just proving that it's not a blanket criticism or scepticism. Sometimes Aftermarket is better. I'm going to give you an example of exactly that, and why I am going to use Aftermarket for my gun feed chutes. And it's going to be very simple to understand. I think if I can get the zoom of the camera to do its job, I'll just pull these out for you. That one, and a really twisted one. That one. No, we don't need both there, we need that one. Right, let me show you this. I'm going to show you, first of all, this is one of the gun feed chutes that comes in the kit. And I think it'll become clear why I'm deciding to go with the aftermarket. Now, I'm a little bit disappointed with Tamiya, just a tiny disappointment here. Because I think that, so this is the actual, I'll try and get closer if I can. That's the gun feed chute. If you look at in the slot where the bullets are, or would be, there just aren't any, there isn't any detail at all. Can you see? It's just a slot, and there's no evidence of any bullets, ammunition in there. Now they did better on things like the Mustang, where they had all the bullets individually shown for the 303 Browning, but they seem to have sort of cut a corner here slightly. So when you look at the aftermarket option, I don't know, the trouble is the colour of this is going to make it awkward. I know it is. Let's see if we can get the detail. I think you'll pick it up. Now here you can actually see the bullets themselves, the cartridges anyway. You can see the cartridges, and you can also with this piece, another piece, one of the ones that's from the end, I think it is, where it twists a bit more. It's quite hard to show you. And you can actually see the individual bullet cartridges that are in the feed chute itself. So, you know, when you hold them side by side, which I'm going to try and do, I'm doing very well, I know, but when you hold them side by side, it's kind of chalk and cheese really, because although these are not perhaps coming out best on camera, the detail on this one, it is a big step up, more than I realised. Now it is tricky, you've got to do a lot of fettling to get these to go in, and I'm a little bit paranoid at the moment about making sure I put them in the right position. It's going to be quite tricky to actually place them, because they don't. It's the old story. They don't have. He says he lost his remote control. It's the old story. They don't have a particularly clear, and this happens a lot with aftermarket resin pieces. Don't have a particularly clear, solid location lug or point that it goes into. You have to sort of make up your own, you know, contact point, and it's not ideal. But I just felt that seeing the bullets there made all the difference, really. And I think that when I come to the end of the build, that you'll see that it will look nicer. And even the photographs, if I show you the photos from the Brett Greenbrook where they built it out of the box, of course, which is fair enough, because that was the whole purpose of the book, really, to show you what it's like. Tamiya sort of must have commissioned this, I think. But when you see there, you see it there quite well, I think. I zoom you in. Check this out, just 1 second. And you can see that it just looks a bit, so you're looking at the top right here, just looks a little bit silly, to be quite honest, when you see it like that. When you know it should have the bullets should be recognisable, the individual cartridges, and you can see that it's just showing the brass coloured, nothing really. There's no detail, no individual cartridge cases at all, and it just doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work. That doesn't. And in fact, it looks a bit crude and a bit cheap and a bit silly, really. So that's not what we're going to do. So just to make a point, really, that I'm sort of against aftermarket if it doesn't actually improve things. So we talked about the Tamiya instruments versus the Edward instruments. Tamiya wins hands down, but they don't here. Here they've lost out by. I don't know why they've cut the corner, because they did such good detail in the Mustang on them. The bullets and the cartridge cases and all that stuff. And here it's just like it would perhaps be a bit awkward or a bit more expensive to mould, I'm not sure. Anyway, that's the first thing. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to zoom you in. I'm not sure if I can get the camera out. I'm going to have to mess with the camera in a rather brutal way, so bear with me. I'm going to zoom you in here. I'm just going to show you over here. What we got is, we got the top of the ammunition boxes. There's 4 of them, of course. And what I'm going to do, I've cut some plastic card. I've got some very thin plastic card. You're going to ask me what gauge. I don't think I know, actually. It's the very thin one. It's this one. It's this one. says. Camera can't focus. It's the one that's really super thin. I'm thinking it's about 0.5 millimetre, something like that. And here's some examples of bits I've cut off, so you can see how thin it is. And then I've actually, is that the, no, ignore that. That's the thicker one. This is the one. This is the one I've cut off for this purpose. So you can see that it's very, very thin. Yeah, very thin indeed. So what I've done is I've cut a strip, which is, here it is, a strip. Cocktail stick's not helping them. A strip here, which is 6.5. Whoops. Dropped. Very hard to show this on camera. It's a strip that's 6.5 millimetres long. All right. 6.5 millimetres in length. So I've got my strip, 6.5 mils long, and it's about 3.5, about 3 millimetres wide, shall we say, like that. So what I'm going to do is, this is why I don't do this, you know. Filming it's a nightmare. You need an overhead camera, really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little strip, and it has to be this is the one that we're making into the leather strap, basically. Now I've already tried to shape it using the tweezers. That doesn't work. So the obvious way around that is we get a cocktail stick, yeah, and we wrap it around the cocktail stick. Do it by hand. Tweezers for that. Take your cocktail stick and wrap it round the shaft of the cocktail stick to make it get the curvature without it being. Because the trouble with plastic card is if you try and bend it, it'll just kink. It'll be multiple kinks, and it won't be a nice, smooth, flowing curve. So wrap it around your cocktail stick. It's very tiny, I know. I'll zoom you back in, see if I can get this to work. It would be better if you can see what I'm doing as well as talking about it. There we go. Now then. So you can see I've got my little white piece of plastic card, and I'm just rolling it back and forth to make it, mould it to that shape. And there we go. That has worked very, very well. If I can get hold of it. Right, here we go. As you can see, it's worked really well. So that now becomes the strap. It'll have to be painted afterwards, of course. So what we will ultimately do, with some difficulty, I suspect, because this is going to be super fiddly, we are going to, there's 4 of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to put those on, and then we'll paint them. It's like a tan colour, leather, you know, and we're going to have these little straps. And that will be that. Super glue them on, of course, which I don't really care for, as you know. I'm not the world's biggest fan of super glue because it makes me feel ill. It just gives me flu symptoms, to be quite honest. But there's an example of something that's almost cost buttons. You know, it's not going to cost me any money. I don't need any aftermarket set for that. That's my ammunition box here, which will ultimately. How are we? How did it go? Yes. Now I've had to. I should point this out. I've had to modify this with a bit of scratch building as well. Let me just show you this, because it comes intended for the Tamiya parts to fit into it. The Tamiya part that I showed you a moment or two ago, which is this one. This Tamiya part would normally fit in under there, and it clips in underneath this top. You see where there's like a little. There's like an oval shaped slot here, yeah, and then there's an oval shaped plug here, and they fit into each other like that. Whoops, it says like that. There we go. They fit like that. Well, this has got to go, so you've got to remove that. But that then gives you a tolerance problem on the other side, the bit when the top goes on here, like so, like that. But you end up with a much bigger gap than you want. So I don't know if you can tell, but I've actually used, I've put it the other way around, you might see it. You can see that I've used plastic card here too to fill in that gap. You see where I've painted it. So just to act like a shim here across, I've had to put in some plastic card so that when we put our gun shoots And here they are. We've got our gun chutes to come in there, and they'll come out like so. And it'll all make a lot more sense when I actually put it together, you know. That's the plan. That's the plan. So I've had to do a bit of fiddling and a bit of scratch building, a bit of creating here, which I don't really mind if it's delivering something extra, you know. What I don't like doing is, as I mentioned before, reprofiling and reworking a kit just to satisfy Aftermarket for its own sake, and then end up with something that you can't tell the difference at the end. That's pointless. You will tell the difference with this, because if I pop the gun cover off, you'll see a lot more detail. You'll have those straps, and you'll have the bullets, all the bullet cases, ammunition in the feeder, chutes going into the guns, clear as day, and we'll highlight them up in such a way that makes them look quite nice, and the eye will spot it. If I show you at the end, again, that photograph from the book versus what I produce, you'll see why I went that route. So I was saying to people, I don't think I'm going to use the Barracuda chutes for the guns. Well, I clearly am. Now there is another, there's another set of them as well, which I haven't got to yet. I'll show you these. And this is for the cannons, the 20mm Hispano cannons underneath. So what we've been talking about so far, of course, is just the 303 guns that are in the nose of the Mozzie. But again, you know, if I show you the side-by-side comparison for the cannons, you're going to understand again even more clearly why I've become a bit more enthusiastic about the Aftermarket, because look at this. And I really do think that Tamiya dropped the ball here, because they're so good at this stuff normally. So look at the top right here, and you can see, again, we've got these chutes, and they're just like an open slot. There's nothing behind it. Whereas here, find it, what it should look like is that, where you can clearly, here, where you can clearly see the actual shells, the ammunition in its belt, or here. You can see them, instead of it just being an open, empty slot, really. It's kind of crazy, because it really does demean this kit a little bit, and it's so good in so many ways. So why they couldn't have moulded that when I've seen them do similar things, you know, elsewhere and different. See it there, don't you? You really see it there. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the two. Perhaps the best comparison of all. See what I mean? Bullets or no bullets. It's just an empty slot, which looks crackers, just bad. So that is the reason I'm going that route, and I think that really does graphically illustrate what the problem really is. You know, if you're going to go to the trouble of painting these things up and doing all the detailing and weathering and blah blah blah, you really want, you expect that it's out of character with the rest of the kit, that omission. Here we've got our gun. You'll see here we've got our gun. I haven't got them out of the bag yet. These are our 303 gun barrels. Now, ironically, I want to just say this to be fair to Tamiya, so you know I don't think they've gone completely mad. The guns, the 303 guns, they're quite good actually. They're not the same as the master model ones, but for plastic, they've actually done a good job here. So it's not all bad news. So I can't quite understand. Look at the muzzles on these 303s. They've got an open muzzle, so they've done that well. They've done that really well. Can't complain, really. Yeah. So that's not so bad, but it's not going to match. Ultimately, it will not match these. The detail that we have here. That's next level, you know. It really is, especially on the cooling jacket element of around the gun barrels. So I'm actually very pleased now. I'm kind of. I was thinking in one of my videos recently when I did the update New Year, I was saying, shouldn't have bought all this, wasted a lot of money on all this Aftermarket. Well, no, just on the instruments really. They were not that great. And I think the Tamiya way of doing it was really clever, and now they've been really dumb. So they've blotted their copybook, haven't they? They've gone in the opposite direction. It's almost like there was different departments, and one was given one set of parameters for detail and the other department weren't told. Do you know what I mean? Interesting. Anyway, there we go. So that's really the update for today. I will do another update. I'm not going to show you sticking this together next. It'll just be a distraction, really. But I'm going to get these stuck up, and then I'll paint them up so they look like these separate little leather grab handles, straps, I should say. And we'll take it from there. So I hope you thought that was interesting. You can see that we've made some progress. Just wanted to give you a bit of an update, especially the Peter Oxley Modelling Lab confidential, as in membership viewers. Those of you that are in fact members get this extra, and it's not going to be in the long term. The plan is these sort of videos I'm doing now won't be seen by the the great unwashed. A bit unkind, I know. But you know what I mean. I'm trying to give something a little bit extra and give you an insight into my thinking. You can see the process I'm going through. All these strips of plastic card I've got out here. So we'll get that all glued up, and then in the not too distant future we'll have another of these updates. And until then, thank you very much for joining me. Stay well, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Until then, thanks a lot, and bye for now.